everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Season's coming up around the corner. We're marching toward March, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Marching towards March. It's coming up. Got some great stuff, down in Branson to start the season. Get your team involved. Get your team registered if you haven't done it. Get your schedule set up. Great stuff coming up. Game7Baseball.com. And today we're back. We're talking some hitting. I got my dude Mitch Thomas with me, and we got a special guest on the show today from Midland Baseball, Midland Bandits, Charlie Kelting. Charlie does instruction, coaching, recruiting. He's been working with the national teams with Midland out of Cincinnati in Texas. And so we brought him on here to talk some hitting.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We're coming off our discussion last week, because technology is the big thing. Everybody done the hit tracks, the blast motion, the kinetics. I mean, you got apparatus strapped all over everybody, right?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out the swing, the mechanics, the things like that. So we're talking today, and Charlie, I want to get your take as you started, from high school, from coming into high school, into college, and your approach to hitting at this point. Where are you at, bud?
I mean, it's definitely changed from, when I played, which was not that long ago, right? I'm 23 years old. So, I mean,
it's not that long ago.
Yeah, not long. But it's definitely changed from when I played, right? I mean, like you said, hit tracks and blast motion and kinetic sensors and all this stuff that they're strapping around guys. I mean, it's different. We didn't have that when I played. Yeah, we had maybe, hit tracks kind of was starting to come up, as I started getting into high school, stuff like that. But we didn't have all this extra stuff. So it was really, hey, see the ball, hit the ball, figure it out. But as it developed into, numbers and technology further, I mean, we started implementing that and, into my swing and what I did. And I mean, it helps for sure. It's a different way to look at it. It's, you're getting instant feedback right then and there because you're using numbers, right? You can see what this number, what this is right off the bat. So you're getting the instant feedback. So, I mean, that's a plus to it, but I mean, I didn't really use a ton of it, coming up through when I played. So,
do you think it's important to have people that understand and can identify these numbers versus, obviously as a hitting coach, you need to know what the numbers represent. But how important is it for the parents to even do the extra work if they are so invested into the technology to understand what swing metrics mean? Because blast motion might be different than diamond kinetics or hit tracks, communication wise, right. Just like us coaches, right? Yeah. The communication is always key. So, thinking about last week's conversation, that's all I can think about is how many people will look at a blast motion sensor, which gives you that instant feedback, which is great. Right. But do you understand what the material or what you're reading? How important do you think is that over even the technology itself? I
think that's the most important part is understanding what you're reading. You get guys that come in and, for example, with our hitting labs, we hook up the sensors to bats. We're taking a look at your attack angle. We're taking a look at your hand speed, your bat speed, your time to contact, all of that stuff. Me knowing what the numbers are and how to improve it and how to tweak it and all of that, it helps. But if I come in like a guy, like you haven't done it, right? Mm-hmm. If you came in and we're like, all right, here, let's put the sensor on the bat. Let's figure out what these numbers are. Well, what's a good range for the kid to be in? Well, what does the attack angle even mean? Well, it's 22. Well, do you know what 22 means? You know what I mean? So
what does attack angle mean?
Yeah,
right?
What's the attack angle, right? So are they getting better just because they have the technology? No. But if you understand what you're doing and you understand the technology and you're implementing it, that's when you're getting better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because that's what that was one of the big points that we made in our last conversation was language. Because as when I was coaching and doing things like that, I used certain terminology. And I would gain terminology based off of instructors that I was working with. One was J.D. Arndt with Drew Prater. Mm-hmm. He was a minor league hitting instructor, And he talked and he said certain things and whatnot. And I used a lot of that language that way. But then somebody else comes along and says this differently. And how does that help the player, you know, when you're changing the language of, okay, I'm using attack angle as opposed to bat plane or launch angle, or what do those all factor in and who's using what language, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and that's more based on hitters as well, like individual, players. One kid might understand something completely different than the other kid. It just depends on how I word things. That's why you always hear, maybe a second set of eyes or maybe a second terminology, the way they say it. Maybe that might help the kid, But yeah, I think the verbiage you use and the way you explain things is also important as well. Because, I might talk to you about, hey, if you're chicken winging your elbow, well, he might not know what that means, but you might know what it means because you understand what that motion is. You see what it is, but another kid might not get what that is. So I have to then show him what exactly it is, or even explain it in a different way. Hey, your elbow's bending, right? Something like that. So I think terminology is definitely very important.
Yeah, we had that conversation a few times just on different shows in general. Not even just last week, about how important it is to relay this information to people and know your client, know your age, know their level of play. Because that's what I sometimes have a struggle with the younger kids is being able to coach, having coached college, having worked with some guys that obviously get it mentally, then going, okay, how do I work with a 10-year-old now? What am I talking to about a 10-year-old? And, it's more, let's just grip it and rip it. Like, I can't get the kid to turn the back foot, and it's the first thing that you think about was when I was taught to hit in the 80s and 90s, like squash the bug. And to me, like, I could say that to a 10-year-old and it might work at 10 years old still. And I'm not saying that that's what I do. I'm just saying, like you have mentioned, is just, what does the chicken wing actually mean? Do you not know what it means because you don't know, from wrestling, it's a term in wrestling, or it's a term how you stretch, or what, putting your hands behind your back, or goofy things like that. That's, I'm huge in how you communicate. And I like what you said there about the second set of eyes. There's a lot of ego in hitting and coaches around the area because we all think that we're probably pretty good, right? Yeah. And
you hope so, right?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm selling my clients at least, right? But at the end of the day, like, sometimes it's good to have somebody come in there. I'm not trying to step on Coach Charlie's toes when I come in there. If I can see something that I'm looking at from a completely different angle, because sometimes it's hard to do, when you're flipping front toss and you're looking at somebody and you got a screen right in front of you and you're just missing something because you can't see what the front side's doing. If I'm over, hey, Charlie, this is what I see. Hey, why don't you tell them? I can't tell you how many times I've been next to a coach that said something to me about what they saw, and I say, explain that to them. Because the way you explained it to me was perfect. So, do that. And I'm 41 now, so my ego is gone. I used to work for, balls and strikes. And so there was a lot of ego in there at the time. And they're good people, good trainers, but they have their opinions for sure.
Sure.
And I still do, but
everybody
I love working and learning. I think I like to learn just as much as my athletes, because I have a kid that I hit with Spiker Helms. He's come in there and told me some information that Spiker has done with him. I really loved what Spiker was saying. He's just looking for the mental approach versus the fundamental approach. So I'm always trying to learn.
And that, 23, right?
Yeah.
So
Young.
How are you approaching that as you're talking about, you're talking about learning and learning. What are the things that are helping you in that respect?
Well, I'll say I am blessed to be in the position I'm at, with our national team. We had, ex-big leaguers kids play on our team. We have pro guys who come into our facility during the week and hit. And, I work with them, but what I tell them every time is, hey, I want to learn more from you than you're going to learn from me here. Yeah. So we just sit down and, we'll break it down. Hey, what are you trying to do here? You're seeing 100 miles an hour day in and day out at the big league level. What are you trying to do here? And learn from those guys, right? They're the best to do it. They're doing it at the highest level possible.
Right.
So, I'd be dumb not to be learning from these guys, right? So, again, I'm blessed to be in that spot, right? But with that's kind of how I try to go about that, is use the tools I have, use the resources I have, the people I have in my, in my corner or whatever you want to call it, and learn from them and get better at what I do as well. So, I mean, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get better at their craft. This is my craft. I'm trying to get better at what I do as well. So that's kind of how I go about that.
I think it's, and to me, you know, that's something we discuss a lot on the show. And it's something with Youth Baseball Midwest that, and I bring this up on occasion when we come to these places because, you know, Charlie grew up in this area, playing baseball, playing youth baseball, high school, went to college, Brent. And I say this all the time. Most of the players at some point will come back into the community and be part of the community. What are we giving back? How are we making an impact on our young kids, our community, giving perspective? What are we learning? How are we helping the next group of athletes? Because the small percentage get to that high level, right? We have some guys that have made it from this area, and there's a lot of talent in the St. Louis area. We know that. So, but it doesn't work unless there are guys like you that have gone through the process, that have come and are coming back and helping and learning more and grooming the next level athlete to those places, correct?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, that's what's exciting about this is, you know, 41, you know, he's 23. He's new, not new into this. He might have been doing it for a couple of years, but he can relate very different than I can to a certain age group of kid. You know, I don't know what it's like at the 18U level, but he's at the national level. So being that he's close in that age, how much respect does he get? That's something that I'm always concerned about with having young coaches coming back is when they get to that high school age group, are they going to listen to the guy? Because it seems like sometimes those young kids have problems listening. And I'm just curious. I'm like, you know, you have a kid that's played college baseball, fresh out of college baseball, and I'm thinking to myself, why wouldn't that be the guy that you would want to latch onto? Because he's fresh he understands the recruiting process. When I was getting recruited, it was very different. I get letters.
Right.
I had VHSs we were sending off, you know what I mean? And it, you know, very different. We were cutting tapes to make everything look good, taking hours, days, and weeks. Now everything is at an instant. And
digital.
Yeah, which is cool. It's obviously much more convenient as a guy that did recruiting. It's great, you know. But again, how does an 18-year-old relate to him versus relate to somebody like me? Does he get the same respect as a coach because maybe he hasn't experienced the hours that, you know, his boss has or I've put in or you've put in? Because he's still got a lot to learn. I mean, still every day at 41, I see new things, a new bounce, a new rule, a new something crazy. And I love that these kids are coming back and giving back because these are young men that I've had probably a chance to coach this age group, you know. I've said it before numerous times as obviously I've been a more of a softball guy. All those girls are giving back. They're being high school coaches and teachers, and it's just really, I can't say enough, like, give back. I'm afraid that this new generation, though, of young kids, when they get done with college, I don't know how many is going to come back. It's just very different.
I don't know. We'll see. I think that's interesting. But I don't think you're that far, you know. What are your thoughts to that?
As far as the, you know, relationship goes with, you know, players, you know, at 17, 18, all that, I think, yes, there are times that, you know, they'll poke the buttons, you know, they'll mess with you a little bit, but you have to establish early, hey, like I tell all my guys all the time, hey, I'm all good with us, you know, joking around, you know, having fun, messing around, you know, cracking jokes. But when we're here to work, you better put your head down. You better get your work done. You better not make me mad because you don't want that. I mean, you guys don't want to run, pretty much, stuff like that. I'll make you run like that, you know. But it's just
good to know negative reinforcement still works.
But it's just that you have to find that balance with guys, and you have to know where the line is at with not only do they need to know where that line's at, but so do you. You need to know where the line's at too. You know, there's some things that, you know, if I'm joking around with, you know, you guys, I can't really joke around with a kid like that, you know, stuff like that, whether he's 17 or whether he's 7 years old, like, you know, it's different. It's a different level. And I think the relationship works out well too on the national level with, you know, we have a guy like our head coach who is very stubborn and stern. And then you got, you know, myself, who's a little more laid back, and all right, guys, like, you know, crack some jokes, have fun. But again, it's still, we're here to do a job. We're here to get work done. We're here to win baseball games and get better and develop and all that good stuff. So, you know, and then as far as kids coming back, I think it's great. I love to see it. You know, we have guys who in our organization alone, there's 4 guys already, and I've only coached for 3 years. There's 4 guys already who I've coached who are already starting to come back and fill assistant roles with us, whether it be on a 7U team or, again, a 16U team, whatever it is. It's just, even for me, like I said, I've only coached for 3 years so far, but seeing these guys that I've coached my first and second year come back and already want to, you know, step in and help, guys who are still playing in college who come back and want to help, that's awesome to me. I love seeing that. So
it makes an impact. I think it makes an impact. And if we keep that going, I think even those younger kids coming up will see that, recognize that, and go, hey, there's a place I can do this. Yeah, I may be going in and doing and being, you know, part of the community as a job and this and that, but I can come back in, I can do some instruction, I can coach, I can help. I have my own kids and the things like that, and be part of that process. I think that's important. Because, you know, here, and this goes back to it, when we're talking about hitting, you were saying before we started here, at that professional level and the things you're gleaning, how are you bringing that into the scope and helping, and that is helping you with the instruction on these younger kids?
A lot of these guys, it's simplicity. How simple it is it's crazy. You know, you see these big league hitters and they have great swings and they're tremendous bat speed and they can do this, that, and the other. And you're sitting there thinking, man, you know, they probably do all of this crazy stuff to get there, and they're probably worried about all of these little things like hip plane and shoulder plane and posterior, interior rotation, all that. No, they're not. They're worried about getting a barrel out in front because they've done it for so long. And the thing is with a lot of these young kids with all the technology, you know, Christmas just came around. How many kids you think just got blast motion sensors and none of them know how to use them, right? So they're snapping all these sensors on and they're making things harder than they need to be, right? It's already hard, and the hardest thing to do in all sports is hit a baseball. It's already hard enough to hit a ball. So why are we making it harder, right? Why are we giving these kids sensors that they don't know what to do with? Right. And again, it's different if you're like myself, who I understand the numbers and all of that stuff, and I'm putting the sensor on and working with you that way. That's different. But if it's somebody who doesn't understand it, like a kid just gets one for Christmas, smacks on his bat, and he's like, I want to go to the cages, and starts taking swings and looking at numbers, he doesn't know what he's looking at. And he's making it way harder on himself. Simplify it. That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm going too far. Simple. That's what I'm trying to say. It's simplifying it. And it's also, it helps too when you tell the kids, hey, so-and-so who plays for this team in the big leagues hit 290 this year, and this is what he does. So, you know, hey, you might want to listen to that, right?
Do you think some of that is, as coaches, some of that is our faults? Selling to our clients, you know, trying to sell the next best thing. You know, you could blame ESPN or whatever you want to start the launch angle conversation. We've always been told to hit the baseball out in front of us, right? So ESPN gets all these cool metrics and data, and next thing you know it, we have hit tracks to give us that information in our facility. Then we have, you know, blast motions now approved that you can use in high school games, and so that you can say, why can a kid hit in a cage and his attack angles are very different in a game, and you can record those and see them. And is some of that our fault as coaches, saying we need this to teach a second tier, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, second level guys? I consider myself a talented hitter in my area when I played in college, but I'm that second level. I'm not the top level, you know, kid. So am I selling folks like me to say, this is how you're going to get better? We're going to spend $180 on this tool, and this is how I'm getting you better. And it just helps sell what we do as an organization, as a hitting coach. Is that some of our fault?
Yes and no. Yes, as far as, I mean, let's be real, we all want to make money. I mean, that's where I make my money, is the lessons. But at the same time, I'm not going to go in and say, hey, you know, Johnny can't hit a ball off of a tee right now, but, you know, pay me $300. I'm going to throw this sensor on, and by the time he's done, he's going to be hitting the ball 450. That's not it, right?
But that happens.
Exactly. Exactly. And
that's kind of why I brought it up. It is a thing.
right. And that's where it goes back to just simplify it. Like we don't need to do all of this stuff to make kids hit the ball. I mean, when you were playing, did you have all that stuff?
Nope.
I mean,
I hit rocks.
I was going to say, you probably
hit rocks with a broomstick.
I did. And bottle caps.
I mean, my boss tells me all the time, I used to go to Swing Around Funtown and just get in the fastest cage and just hit. I mean, and that's all that it was. We figure it out, you know? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that part of it is on us that, you know, some of us do sell. And, you know, I'm guilty of it too at times. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm innocent. I'm a saint, right? I'm guilty of it too at times. But I think we are all, you know, guilty of trying to sell more than we can.
I have everything. I have Hit Tracks. I have Oculus. If you have not used Oculus, which is amazing. I actually like the Win Reality app. I don't know if you've ever used it. I'm a big fan of it.
Trying to get that at the old facility. We're trying to run that by somebody right now. So,
I still have access to it. So for whatever reason, have Matt come over. I'm right down the street from you guys. Well, you know, there's places in between us, but I love it. Pitch recognition. It's very different, the visual side of things. Yeah. But I'm into like things like Game Sense, which are visual trainers, you know, just pitch recognition stuff, because that's what I think we really fail at more than anything is timing and pitch recognition. But I have all of the tools. Right now, most of them are collecting dust.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Okay, well, we'll finish on this because I think this comes to this as we finish up. And I think this becomes the question. You have an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, right? You have then the 13, 14, 15-year-old, right? Where do we keep the simplicity with these younger age groups and teaching just a basic mechanic to get the child understanding the flow and understanding that? And then when they are more developed, when they're getting their body strength, isn't that where we can really then apply the technology to fine tune that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's my thought process when I go about it. It's, you know, I get, you know, little Johnny comes in and he's never really hit before. He's got to learn how to hit a baseball and turn his back foot and swing a bat before I'm even going to touch any sensors. Because even if I throw a sensor on his bat, it's not going to do me any good because we got to work on the mechanical part of it all before we start working on, all right, these are what the numbers are and this is how we improve them. Right now, that being said, I do have, you know, 13-year-old kids who come in and they have great swings. I'm like, this kid's got a better swing than some 15-year-olds I've seen. So then, like that kid, I'll throw a sensor on. I'm like, all right, let's start dabbling in it a little bit. Let's mess with the numbers a little bit. But for the most part, I'm big into keeping it simple. Like just keep it simple, especially for those young kids. The younger they are, almost the simpler you have to keep it. Yeah. And then again, it just kind of goes from there. It goes into, you know, the talent level of the individual player, right? Because you'll have some 13-year-olds who have really good swings and they can start diving into that. But then you have your, you know, 15-year-old kids who they're starting almost at square one, and you're debating on whether or not they're a PO, right? But you get what I'm saying. So, I mean, that's just kind of my thought process behind it. I think that's great.
Those conversations happen right at 15 years old. And I agree to a lot of these. I'm on that same theory of keeping it simple and kind of getting back to some of the guys that work out during the day. We don't really open up during the day for our facility. And so, you know, some of our guys that are in professional baseball, they come during regular business hours. And what you'll see they'll be in there by themselves. They'll have a significant other, a girlfriend, you know, a wife come in there and may hit with them, throw them front toss or get on a machine and, you know, ask somebody in the facility to feed. But everything that they do is up the middle.
Yes.
No matter what they seem to be working on, it's trying to not hit the baseball at the top of the cage. It is trying to make the loudest noise on the back wall, you know, and trying to beat up our cages. And I'm a firm believer that, like, how simple is that? And so now after working with, you know, my first experience was working with Gary and Grimm back when he was with the Orioles, getting to meet him as a young man. You know, we would sit in there and hit for hours and he would just try to pepper baseballs up the middle, you know, sometimes get lift, but again, why? Well, keep everything in, you know, no matter what the pitch was, it was up the middle, up the middle, up the middle, you know, and then, you know, Chase comes in there and then Justin Dearden and these guys come in here. Local kids are just always peppering baseballs up the middle. I started getting impressed by people that could take anything and hit it up the middle hard. I mean, just, you want 85, well, and you're 16 years old, hit 85 up the middle on a ball that's on the inner half, because it takes a lot to be able to
get those hands in,
to get your hands in those spots and then extend through that to get barrel.
Right.
And so, like you said, keep it simple.
They're even at 85, that's tough.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just random number there, but again, they're working middle.
Yeah.
And trying to hit the ball 20 feet off the ground.
Right, and to kind of go, piggyback off of that, right? Victor Martinez's son played on, our national team last year. So I had, plenty of opportunity to sit down and talk to him. Great hitter. I mean, one of the best to do it, right? He's a very good hitter. One of the best switch hitters ever, actually. But talking to him, he's like, man, when I was in the cage, with Miguel Cabrera, he's like, when I was in the cage with Manny, he's like, that back square, he's like, we didn't touch those sides of the top. We wouldn't hit nothing but the back square, that back net. He goes, and then when we would get, loose, he goes, that was just us warming up. When we would get loose, we'd take tape and we'd put squares. Oh, sorry. We'd put squares of tape on the fence or on the net and try to hit in each square every single time. And don't touch the top. Don't touch the sides. He's like, that's all we did. Anytime we were in a cage, that's all we did. We would never hit it up trying to hit home runs or any of that. He's like, it's just up the middle. It's simple. Wow. That's all it was, and the pro guys that come in, during the week, I left-handed hitter comes in, he's just inside the baseball, everything. If there was a shortstop there, he would have sat there like this, left-handed hitter, shortstop would have sat there and just went boom and caught nothing but line drives for the whole hour that this guy hit. That was all it was, right?
That has to be Justin. Justin, that sounds like Justin.
No names.
No names. He must have a real big leader or something in there. I'm trying to give these guys some love so our community knows who these guys are to pay attention to.
Oh, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's okay. Whatever you want to do, that's what we ought to do.
He goes up there early, and he doesn't want the traffic getting up there at 12. I see how it works.
He's a Cub, so I don't think I'll get much love for that around here.
You're not going to get much.
That's why I'm not saying anything.
I'll never understand it. I love the rivalry, the Cubs-Cardinals rivalry.
Absolutely.
But I'll never understand why there's hatred for a big league club of the best players in the world. Be a baseball fan first before you're a homer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
The Cubs do stink right now. But
it's a lot of respect. Always give respect.
Bartman.
Guys, great stuff. Great insights. Love it. Comments. I should have threw that in there earlier. Sorry, Justin. I hope you threw the comment button up there a few times. Comments are always welcome. It's always great to get into the conversation. Charlie.
Thank you, sir. I
appreciate the knowledge, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was good.
Absolutely. It was awesome.
Right?
Yeah, heck yeah, man. I'm glad I got to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure meeting you. Pleasure getting to chat with you.
Yeah, Matt doesn't, let me talk to any of his employees. So
he keeps me hidden.
Man. Dude,
keeps me hidden.
I'm just kidding. No, you know how it goes, man. It's such a competitive, fun, atmosphere. And I think baseball in St. Louis is starting to change a little bit. You got mergers happening. Places are getting a little bit larger. I'm seeing some growth on the baseball side on understanding what our kids really are, and I see some of that, and I'm really excited for the next few years of baseball because I think we took a hit a couple years ago.
I agree. I think
it's a very true statement there. I like that one.
I just don't. Everybody can eat.
That's right, and because there's plenty of kids, great talent. And that's what Youth Baseball Midwest is why we do the podcast. We want to bring all kinds of information. And I love the candidness. I love the talk because, that's what it should be about. And we should all be able to have that conversation without getting all upset at each other. There ain't no sense in all that nonsense anyway.
They're just opinions.
Yeah, we know what they're like. Anywho, doubles and dingers, right? That's what it's about. Subscribe, leave the comments, like the video. We appreciate that very much. And you can hit the dinger there next to it because as Matt has, Matt, you like that?
Yeah.
As my buddy Mitch always says, doubles and dingers,
I'm not
double
his boss.
D's.
Not yet. I'm not his boss. Not yet. Sorry,
Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes, and you hitters, hit them where they ain't. That is good advice. We'll see you next time.